one more thing that I really want to talk to you about is this idea, automation, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I know it's a big, I guess, intellectual mountain that you want to climb.
Yeah.
And I guess there's two prongs to this. How does this factor into your process? How do you, does this impact your process in any way? The other side is there an opportunity for you here in investing?
Yeah, so I think AI will be one of the biggest changes to humanity, basically. It's probably at the top of like the hype cycle at the moment, so I don't want to think that's just going to go straight. It'll probably have a crash and then come back, but when it comes back, I think it's just going to be pretty dramatic. So we are, as I said, forecasting machines. I think we are prediction machines, and machine learning and AI is just prediction at scale. And I think it'll touch everything around us. There's another book I really like called The Third Wave, around bringing the internet. They say the first wave was just building the internet. The second wave was like layers and applications like Facebook. And the third wave is bringing it into the real world, so touching everything around us. Internet of Things, but just, it's hard to describe. Like augmented reality, for instance, is effectively AI and machine learning. So this is looking out in the world and it projects a map onto the world that's different for you or different for I. That's a radical change of what reality is, right? Like you and I could have literally different realities that we're both experiencing. And I think that will happen. Like there's already companies like Magic Leap and HoloLens that are doing it. They just need to keep miniaturizing it. It's already starting. Just a lot of these things, it's going to be a very big change. So any big change I'm super interested in. CRISPR and DNA editing is another one that I'm super interested in. It's even earlier. But so trying to understand them first, and trying to like understand them when they're still early, because it takes a couple of years for me to get up to speed enough to talk with any authority, not that I'm an authority in any means, but to know the right questions to ask. For instance, every company on the ASX right now wants to say it's an AI company, and then I can ask better questions because I've tried to research it than other people, hopefully. And sometimes the CEOs don't know what they're talking about. I can find that out pretty quickly. So that's huge. I think it's going to be as big, I think, as like the internet or something like that. So it's trying to find how the business models will be different as well. It's kind of like I think it'll be like a flywheel effect around learning loops for the data, who can get good quality data and speed up that interaction. I hope that I think it might be similar to SaaS in some ways, that you could have it be sold as a service, the AI prediction, rather than selling the AI, if that makes sense. So instead of selling AI to predict crop yields or to fertilize, you might have selling the service per acre of a service which uses AI to deliver that. And so the customer doesn't need to know it's AI. But so that's what I'm looking to. A lot of what we do is trying to find big companies when they're still small and early. So we look a lot at VC, venture capital work, and how they think about companies, analyze them. So I'm trying to bring that in. And yeah, to your point around using it for investing, it's actually super hard. So I've done some tutorials and whatever else around investing, build a neural net to predict, try to analyze a letter or something and see which one it is based on handwriting. Stuff like that is easy because you've got a direct mapping between the signal and the result, between the data and the accurate result you want. And in investing, there's this beautiful thing in the middle which mixes it all up, which is sentiment and prices. And so you could have some fundamental, but if you're trying to predict price, it's very hard. I think the people like Patrick O'Shaughnessy that are doing interesting things around it is not trying to predict share market stuff, but just trying to predict other fundamentals. So you find some and predict those. But it's still super early days. It's definitely not a big part of what we do now. It's something that I'm trying to continue exploring. And hopefully use some of that stuff in future. But at the moment, it's more understanding enough about it so that when someone says that they're an AI company, I get to ask, how do you train your data sets? Is it unsupervised or supervised learning? How are you annotating that? And then if they don't know any of that, maybe they're not really an AI company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of stuff.
How about if someone was to say to you that what you do as a stock picker, quote unquote, could be automated? What would be your defense to that?
I don't try to defend too much, to be honest. I'm kind of open to it if it can happen. So I'd want to be one of the guys trying to figuring that out. So I think that is one area that I'd want to explore is I have a certain set of companies that I like, and can I build something that helps to identify other companies that matches what I like, if that makes sense? So then it's still missing out a lot of stuff, but it might be able to be used as like an idea gen tool, kind of like a screen, but instead it's a neural network trained on companies that I happen to have liked in the past. So that could be one way of doing it. But I think bigger than that, it's what I felt about my process, because when you get into this stuff, it can get a bit spooky, right? You think about how many jobs could be eliminated, etc. I think it's trying to think about what things won't be easy for a computer to do or a machine learning algorithm to do, and then trying to build a lot of the moat around those, or trying to focus on those. So I mentioned integration before. I think that's still something really big. So being curious and understanding diverse topics and how they fit together is one of the harder problems in AI. And so trying to build stuff around that, and then moving away from quantitative data. So you could say, maybe what I'm doing in my strategy is like a retreat from what the machines have started taking over. But I think part of the reason a lot of traditional value investing doesn't work as well is because it's really easy to do mechanically. If something can be done mechanically, it probably should be. Like, it's more efficient for the world. It don't need to pay someone to see that P of 5 is great. And there's different pockets. Small companies are still going to be harder for that to happen and whatever else. But generally, I think if you're just relying on past financial publicly available data, it's just going to keep getting harder. And so that layers you're talking about, qualitative, meeting with management, trying to build a skill set around meeting with management, trying to build a skill set around understanding sales and marketing processes, around culture. These are things that I've tried to develop over the last few years. And I guess the last point is new areas are always going to be pretty hard for AI unless they're very similar to old areas. So AI might struggle to invest in, a new DNA company if that's an entirely different business model, if that makes sense. They won't have any data to train on. All of this stuff relies on using lots of past data to understand. And so I think that is an area we keep focusing on new industries and getting good at understanding them early, that we should be able to stay ahead of the curve. But we'll see. I'm open to it. I don't want to be too defensive. I think you can get locked down into a mode of thinking if you try to defend too much. Yeah.